Namaskar. A warm welcome to the World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Aditi Lumba bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring to you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. The headlines. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi says Sansad Khel Mahakumbh plays huge role in highlighting country's potential in the world of sports. Prime Minister Modi to address Economic Times Global Business Summit in New Delhi on Friday. India and Fiji sign MOU on visa exemption for holders of diplomatic and official passports. American billionaire Ray Dalio says India will have biggest and fastest growth rate in upcoming years. World Bank chief David Malpass announces that he would step down from the post before his five-year term expires. Second batch of 12 cheetahs from South Africa to reach India on Saturday, and second cricket test of Border Gavaskar series between India and Australia to begin in New Delhi from Friday. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said that India needs to choose new ways and create new systems to become sports power, and MP Khel Mahakumbh is that new way and new system. The Prime Minister gave his message virtually at the closing ceremony of MP Khel Mahakumbh in Gorakhpur district of Uttar Pradesh on Thursday. In his virtual address, Mr. Modi said, Khel Mahakumbh is the foundation on which the future building in sports sector will be constructed. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will address the Economic Times Global Business Summit in New Delhi on Friday. The theme of the two-day summit is Resilience, Influence and Dominance. The Global Business Summit is hosted annually by the Times Group. It will bring together thought leaders, policy makers, academicians and corporate heads on a common platform seeking to provide solutions to key economic challenges. More than 200 business leaders will speak across 40 sessions at the summit. India and Fiji have signed a Memorandum of Understanding on visa exemption for holders of diplomatic and official passports. Under this agreement, diplomatic and official passport holders will be able to enter transit, stay in each other's territories without a visa for a period not exceeding 90 days. The MOU was exchanged in the presence of Prime Minister of Fiji, Sitiveni Rabuka, and External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has said that today India's foreign policy is beginning to reflect a lot of deep socio-economic concerns. Addressing the Indian community in Suva, Fiji, he said, "We are transforming the world within the country and also want to transform the world outside." Dr. Jaishankar said transforming the world is not something that any country can do alone. He said within 24 hours of the Turkey earthquake, India sent a plane with a rescue team and rapidly set up a field hospital. He said Indians abroad are both a source of strength and a matter of pride. The External Affairs Minister said India genuinely wants its G20 presidency to make a difference. The three-day event of the first G20 Agriculture Deputies meeting of the Agriculture Working Group at Indore concluded on Wednesday. 86 delegates from around 30 countries participated in the event. Our correspondent reports the G20 members stressed on the need to increase climate finance to help farmers take up adaptation measures. Agriculture Secretary Manoj Ahuja, while addressing the media, said the member countries also suggested that farmers can be incentivized if they are adapting climate-friendly farming or green agriculture. The G20 nations also share their experience on impact of the climate change in agriculture. G20 delegates deliberated on 4 key priority areas: food security and nutrition, sustainable agriculture with climate-smart approach, inclusive agriculture value chain and food supply system, and digitalization of agriculture transformation. Nearly 1.50 lakh foreign delegates are expected to reach India this year to participate in various G20 meetings in the country. This information was given by Union Minister for Tourism, Culture and Development of Northeastern Region, G. Kishan Reddy, while talking to media during his visit to Amravati. Addressing reporters, he said G20 meetings will be held in 56 countries. Andhra Pradesh is gearing up to host the G20 Summit Working Group Committee meeting in Visakhapatnam on March 28 and 29 under Swadesh Darshan scheme. So far, the state has got 141 crore rupees for various projects for which the state tourism department is the implementing agency. The Tourism Ministry will organize first Global Tourism Invest Summit from the 17th to 19th of May this year in New Delhi to showcase opportunities in the tourism and hospitality sector. The summit will deliberate on potential opportunities for investment across tourism segments, including hotels and restaurants, adventure and ecotourism, cruise and other related tourism sectors. Addressing a press conference in New Delhi, Tourism Minister G. Kishan Reddy said that the government is working in a mission mode to promote and develop the tourism sector in India. He said the number of domestic and international tourists is increasing in the country and India is emerging as a major tourism destination in the world. Mr. Reddy said the government is focusing on connectivity, civic infrastructure, tourism amenities and soft infrastructure to promote and develop the tourism sector. The minister said with India hosting G20 presidency, the government is also working with state governments, local bodies and other ministries to attract foreign tourists. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said that the government is continuously working to ensure that tribal products reach maximum markets. He said that the demand for the products made by the tribal community is increasing and now the products of the Northeast are being exported to foreign countries. He was speaking after inaugurating the mega national tribal festival Adi Mahotsav at Major Dhyan Chand National Stadium in New Delhi on Thursday. The Prime Minister highlighted that bamboo products are now being exported. Earlier, cutting of bamboo and its use was restricted.
हम बैम्बू को घास की कैटेगरी में ले आए और उस पर सारे जो प्रतिबंध लगे थे उसको हमने हटा दिया। इससे बैम्बू प्रोडक्ट्स अब एक बड़ी इंडस्ट्री का हिस्सा बन रहे हैं। ट्राइबल प्रोडक्ट्स ज्यादा से ज्यादा बाजार तक आए, इनकी पहचान बढ़े, इनकी डिमांड बढ़े, सरकार इस दिशा में लगातार काम कर रही है।
The Prime Minister said that the world needs to learn a lot from India's tribal people about sustainable development, fighting against global challenges including climate change challenge and global warming. Mr. Modi said New India is working with the vision of Sabka Saath Sabka Vikas and the government is making efforts to reach out to the people who have not been reached out for a long time. Prime Minister Modi also stressed on the need to promote millets as the world is celebrating the International Year of Millets. On the occasion, Mr. Modi also paid homage to tribal freedom fighter Birsa Munda. Our correspondent reports that 1,000 tribal artists from 28 states and union territories are taking part in Adi Mahotsav. India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has said the government's initiatives have assured availability of 2 lakh crore rupees credit assurance without guarantee for MSMEs. She said this will reduce the loan expenditure by 1% and will be available from April this year. The Finance Minister was holding post-budget interactions with stakeholders in Hyderabad on Thursday. Describing MSMEs as growth engines of the economy, she said the budget proposes enhanced limits for micro-enterprises and certain professionals for availing the benefit of presumptive taxation. Later, participating in another program in Hyderabad, Finance Minister said focus of the budget 2023-24 was on inclusive and sustainable growth, keeping common man and weaker sections in mind.
You all are aware that for all the schemes, whether it is the Awas Yojana, whether it is the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, LED bulbs in streets, for the Mudra loan, street vendors, Swabhiman, Swalamban, each one of them, our focus is to have saturation achieved. In that every eligible person for that one particular category should be extended the facility.
American billionaire Ray Dalio has said India will have the biggest and the fastest growth rate in the upcoming years. During the World Government Summit 2023 in Dubai, he said India will see the biggest transformation among the rest of the countries of the world. During the Governments and the Changing World Order session of the summit, Dalio emphasized that India has a bright future.
India is the country, from all of the statistics using 10-year growth rates and also just what's apparent, India will have probably the greatest growth rate, fastest growth rate economically, have the greatest transformation.
Ray Dalio, the founder of Bridgewater Associates, said, unlike US and China, who are engaged in power conflicts, India, being a neutral country, will be able to rise higher up in ranks in terms of growth in the coming years. In today's Hotspot section, we bring you a news commentary on strengthening India-Bangladesh relations.
India was the first country to recognize Bangladesh as a separate and independent state and established diplomatic relations with the country immediately after its independence in December 1971. India played a vital role in the liberation war of Bangladesh, thus ending 23 years of brutal exploitation by Pakistan. The memory of that shared struggle has formed a unique bond of friendship between the two countries. India's links with Bangladesh are also civilizational, cultural, social and economic. There is much that unites the two countries, a shared history and common heritage, linguistic and cultural ties, passion for music, literature and the arts. This commonality is reflected in our multidimensional and expanding relations. India and Bangladesh's geographical locations complement each other and present an opportunity for both to further develop their connectivity links and economies. In the 5 decades since 1971, India and Bangladesh have continued to consolidate their political, economic, trade and cultural relations and have built a comprehensive institutional framework to promote bilateral cooperation. There has been a qualitative transformation in the relationship under the leadership of Prime Ministers Narendra Modi and Sheikh Hasina. Both sides have forged a remarkable understanding which has led to the successful resolution of some long-pending matters. The maritime boundary arbitration in 2014 and the land boundary agreement in 2015 ensured that sovereignty and territorial issues were removed from the list of lingering irritants. The Awami League government has given concrete support in checking the activities of Indian insurgent groups and terrorists on Bangladeshi soil. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina paid a state visit to India from the 5th to the 8th of September 2022. During her visit, she called on President Draupadi Murmu and Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar. Delegation-level talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi were held on the 6th of September 2022, after which 7 MOUs on bilateral cooperation, including on river water sharing, capacity building and space cooperation, were signed. The Prime Minister said in a joint press statement on the 6th of September 2022,
बांग्लादेश भारत का सबसे बड़ा डेवलपमेंट पार्टनर और क्षेत्र में हमारा सबसे बड़ा ट्रेड पार्टनर है। हमारे घनिष्ठ सांस्कृतिक और पीपल टू पीपल संबंधों में भी निरंतर वृद्धि हुई है।
Foreign Secretary Vinay Quatra paid an official visit to Bangladesh on the 15th and 16th of February 2023 at the invitation of the Foreign Secretary of Bangladesh, Masood bin Momen. The Foreign Secretary called on Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, and conveyed the Prime Minister's message of India's continued commitment to the bilateral relationship, upholding Bangladesh as the pivot of India's neighbourhood first policy and a key partner of its Act East policy. During the Foreign Office consultations, Foreign Secretary Quatra and Foreign Secretary Ambassador Masood bin Momen held wide-ranging discussions covering all aspects of the relationship. Both sides agreed to further strengthen ongoing bilateral cooperation in diverse areas, including the Government of India-funded concessional lines of credit, trade and investment, connectivity, power and energy, defence and security, and people-to-people ties. They also agreed to enhance their cooperation and consultations on regional and international issues of shared interest. India looks forward to active participation of Bangladesh as the guest country at various events during India's presidency of G20. Both sides also agreed to extend reciprocal support to each other's upcoming candidature for non-permanent membership of the UN Security Council. Despite the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, there was intense high-level engagements at political and official levels beginning with the exchange of New Year greetings between Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina on the 1st of January 2020. Prime Minister Modi participated in the birth centenary celebrations of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman through a video message on the 17th of March 2020 and his telephonic calls to Prime Minister Hasina on the 29th of April to convey greetings on the occasion of the holy month of Ramzan and to discuss the regional situation in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. In January 2021, the Government of India gifted 2 million Covishield Oxford AstraZeneca vaccines to Bangladesh to assist in its efforts to fight against the pandemic. The year 2021 was historic for India-Bangladesh relations as both countries commemorated the 50th anniversary of the Liberation War and establishment of diplomatic relations. India shares a 4,100-kilometer-long border with Bangladesh. The growing strategic consensus and trust between the two countries has also led to new initiatives in areas such as defense and security, trade and commerce, power and energy, transport and connectivity, science and technology, cyberspace and maritime affairs. Currently, there are more than 60 ongoing bilateral institutional mechanisms between the two nations. Bilateral trade has shown phenomenal growth over the last decade and is India's biggest trade partner in South Asia. India has been making efforts to enhance transport and connectivity with Bangladesh and through Bangladesh with our northeast. Close to 27% of India's development assistance goes to Bangladesh. India has extended a total of $7.36 billion worth lines of credit, the biggest with any country, in areas such as power generation and transmission and rail and road transport and infrastructure development, including economic zones. 88 high-impact community development projects in the areas of education, health, water, culture, urban development, disaster management and community welfare have also been undertaken by India. People-to-people contact between the two countries continues to grow. India issues more than 2 million visas annually to Bangladeshis, making it the biggest visa operation globally.
Welcome back. The enchanting journey of the Ganga Vilas River cruise through the waters of Bangladesh came to an end with a visit to historic places in northern Rangpur district on Thursday. Crisscrossing the country from the southern tip of Sundarban's mangrove forest to the northern tip of Chilmari and Rangpur over 2 weeks, the voyage through Bangladesh was as exciting for the tourists as it was invigorating for the tourism potential of the country by bringing the focus on the bounty of nature as well as the invaluable heritage of art and architecture of Bangladesh. It will re-enter India at Dhubri after leaving Chilmari in the morning on Friday. The tourists arrived at Chilmari River Port on Wednesday to complete the customs and immigration formalities. On Thursday, the tourists travelled to Rangpur to visit the majestic Taj Hat Palace, built in the early 20th century. The palace, a protected monument, is a fine example of architecture. The cruise members visited the century-old Dimla Kali temple and also more than a century-old Karichel College. They paid floral tributes at Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujib Memorial and Language Memorial at Rangpur. This is All India Radio giving you the world news. World Bank Chief David Malpass has announced that he would step down from the post before his 5-year term expires. Mr. Malpass was appointed to the role in 2019 and previously served as Under-Secretary of the Treasury for International Affairs in U.S. administration. According to media reports, in recent months, Malpass has come up against calls for his resignation or removal. Climate activists had called for Malpass to be ousted for what they said was an inadequate approach to the climate crisis. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, in a statement, said that U.S. is looking forward to a swift nomination process for Malpass' successor. Scottish First Minister and Scottish National Party leader Nicola Sturgeon has resigned, signalling the end of political era. It has triggered the SNP's first leadership election campaign in nearly 20 years. She was crowned party leader in 2014 without a contest. Sturgeon said she was clear that this was the right time to go, and she added she was drained by the unrelenting and unforgiving pressures of modern politics. She said it was impossible to live a normal life. The 4th edition of Joint Military Exercise ex-Dharma Guardian between India and Japan is being conducted at Camp Imazu in Shiga province, Japan from tomorrow to the 2nd of next month. This annual training event with Japan is crucial and significant in terms of security challenges faced by both nations in the backdrop of the current global situation. The scope of this exercise covers platoon-level joint training on operations in jungle and semi-urban or urban terrain. China has warned that it will take countermeasures against U.S. entities as it accused U.S. of abusing the use of force in shooting down a suspected Chinese spy balloon off the South Carolina coast on February the 4th. China initially expressed regrets over the entry of its balloon into U.S. airspace, but has now turned to accuse the U.S. of illegally flying balloons in Chinese airspace more than 10 times since May last year, along with the threats of retaliation. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin said on Wednesday at a daily briefing that China will take countermeasures in accordance with the law against the relevant U.S. entities that undermine Beijing's sovereignty and security. China denies that the balloon was a military aircraft but has not yet provided any details about the government department or company responsible for it. The United States has sanctioned 6 Chinese entities linked to China's aerospace program. Secretary of State Antony Blinken also cancelled a visit to Beijing after the discovery of the Chinese balloon in the U.S. airspace. Meanwhile, Japan's defense ministry said in a statement on Tuesday that the Japanese government strongly suspects that the 3 unidentified flying objects spotted in its airspace since 2019 are Chinese surveillance balloons. New Zealand government has said that at least 4 people, including a child, have died in the devastation of Cyclone Gabrielle. The cyclone has caused significant flooding and landslides across North Island. However, Gabrielle has moved away from New Zealand, but about 10,500 people were still displaced. Prime Minister Chris Hipkins has called Gabrielle the biggest weather event to hit the country in the past century. He said it is estimated to affect at least a third of the country's 5 million population. Russia has said that it had broken through 2 of the Ukraine's fortified defense lines in the east of the country. The Russian Defense Ministry on Wednesday said Ukrainian forces had retreated in the face of Russian operations in the Luhansk region. It said the Ukrainian troops randomly retreated to a distance of up to 3 kilometers from the previously occupied lines. Meanwhile, Ukrainian Deputy Defense Minister Hanna Maliar said Russian forces were mounting rock-the-clock assaults on government positions. On the other hand, Western countries announced more military spending on Ukraine, including artillery rounds. NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg said alliance members were continuing to produce 155mm artillery rounds. European Union Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell urged countries to join Germany in sending tanks. The death toll in Turkey and Syria has risen to more than 41,000, according to media reports. Many survivors are enduring near-freezing winter temperatures, having been left homeless by the devastation in cities in both the countries. Focus has shifted to supporting survivors and with much of the region's sanitation infrastructure damaged by the earthquakes. The health authorities face a daunting task in trying to ensure that people now remain disease-free. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said damage assessment of buildings, of which tens of thousands were destroyed, will be completed in a week and reconstruction will begin within months. The World Health Organization, WHO, on Wednesday said it was particularly concerned by the welfare of people in northwestern Syria, a rebel-held region with little access to aid. In Pakistan, the federal government increased the fuel price to a historic high last night. This came hours after the government introduced a tax-loaded finance supplementary bill 2023. According to media reports, the price of petrol has been moved up to 272 Pakistani rupees per litre after an increase of 22.20 rupees. The price of high-speed diesel has been increased to 280 rupees per litre after a hike of 17.20 rupees. Kerosene oil has reached at 202.73 rupees per litre following the 12.90 rupees hike. Pakistan's Federal Board of Revenue has issued a statutory regulatory orders raising the standard general sales tax GST rate from 17 to 18% in order to collect taxes totaling 115 billion rupees. Local media reported that 55 billion rupees will be raised through other measures related to Finance Supplementary Bill 2023. The second batch of 12 cheetahs from South Africa will reach India on the 18th of this month. Talking to media in New Delhi on Thursday, Environment, Forest and Climate Change Minister Bhupendra Yadav informed that 10 quarantine enclosures were created at Kuno National Park in Madhya Pradesh for the new batch of cheetahs. He lauded Prime Minister Narendra Modi's efforts in converting environmental crisis into harmony and said it should be an example of the world. Earlier, the Prime Minister had released 8 cheetahs at Kuno National Park in September last year. At the stock markets, key indices ended with slight marginal gains today and the rupee strengthened against the dollar. In the international market, the Brent crude oil futures traded slightly higher. A report from the business desk.
At the stock markets, the Sensex at the Bombay Stock Exchange ended with a marginal gain of 44 points to close at 61,320 today. The Nifty at the National Stock Exchange moved up 20 points to 18,036. Among other global stock markets, Asian markets ended mostly higher today. So, Japan's Nikkei index rose 0.7%, Hong Kong's Hang Seng index climbed 0.8%, South Korea's Kospi index jumped 1.9%, and Singapore's Straits Times index added 1%. But China's Shanghai Composite index fell 1%. In Europe, London's FTSE had edged up 0.1%, France's CAC had climbed 0.9%, and Germany's DAX had added 0.5% in intraday trade. Global crude oil prices edged lower today after a large build-up in U.S. crude inventories, but continued to trade in a narrow range as hopes for a Chinese demand recovery remained in focus. So the Brent crude futures fell 36 cents to trade at $85.02 a barrel. The U.S. crude futures shed 29 cents to $78.30 a barrel. And at the forex market, the rupee gained 9 paise to 82 rupees and 72 paise against the dollar. Rajesh Lake for World News, All India Radio.
The Border Gavaskar Trophy's second test match will begin on Friday at Arun Jaitley Stadium in New Delhi. India will be aiming to gain 2-0 lead after inflicting an innings and 132-run defeat on the visitors. Australia, on the other hand, will try to level the series. Indian spinners dominated the first test, with R. Ashwin scalping 8 wickets and Ravindra Jadeja grabbed 7. Now let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. The Financial Times writes Ukraine war pushes US to review arms stockpiles. South China Morning Post writes 2 Chinese students among injured in Michigan State University shooting, consulate says. Le Monde writes in neutral Sweden, civil defense and citizens gear up for possibility of war. The Globe and the Mail reports how Canada contributes to NORAD as it watches the skies over North America. The Guardian says Big Pharma must value African lives above profits, warns heads of UNAIDS. And the Japan Times reports Scotland's Nicola Sturgeon bows out of the critical moment for independence fight. A quick look at the headlines once again. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi says Sansad Khel Mahakumbh plays huge role in highlighting country's potential in the world of sport. Prime Minister Modi to address Economic Times Global Business Summit in New Delhi on Friday. India and Fiji sign MOU on visa exemption for holders of diplomatic and official passports. American billionaire Ray Dalio says India will have biggest and fastest growth rate in upcoming years. World Bank chief David Malpass announces that he would step down from the post before his 5-year term expires. Second batch of 12 cheetahs from South Africa to reach India on Saturday. And second cricket test of Border Gavaskar series between India and Australia to begin in New Delhi from Friday. And now, before we end, let us listen to Mahatma Gandhi's favorite bhajan, Vaishnava Jan, by Artis from Denmark.
Vaishnava Jan tu tene kahiye je, peed parai साथ मन निश्चल राखे धन धन जननी सनी रे वैष्णव जन तू तीने कहिए.
And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of the World News.